a boy named Ethan, and a father who carried secrets darker than the night itself. But what Ethan discovers, what he touches, what his father brought home, is not human, it is not kind, and it does not forgive. It whispers in the dark, inside walls, inside bones, inside your very skin. A mark, a curse, a thing that claims what it wants. And it wants Ethan. Listen closely, and keep the lights on, because once you hear this story, it won't leave you. Welcome to the horror of the thing my father brought home. My name is Ethan Miller, and I grew up in a small rural town wedged between endless cornfields and a line of dark, old pine woods. If you've ever lived out in the American countryside, you know how quiet it gets at night. Sometimes too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels watched. Our house sat at the very end of a gravel road, the last one before the woods swallowed everything. On good days, you could hear the church bells drifting from town, but most nights, all you heard were crickets and the slow, dragging groan of the wind through the trees. Behind our house was a stretch of woods so old it felt alive, and somewhere deep inside those trees was an old burial ground. Settlers, unmarked graves, people who died before this town had a name. Folks didn't talk about it much. Out here, silence is its own kind of tradition. We lived there long enough that nothing seemed strange anymore. Or at least, that's what we told ourselves. My father, James, used to drink. Not your casual beer after work kind of drinker. More like the haul him home before he freezes on someone's porch kind. Then, one day, he just stopped. No warning. No church revival. No family intervention. He simply said, "Something woke me up." And that was that. After he quit, Dad changed. He became calmer, quieter, and for reasons none of us really understood, he started helping people. Blessing their homes, praying for the sick, listening to problems like some kind of small-town spiritual guide. He never took a single dollar. People brought pies, candles, fruit baskets, the usual country hospitality. Then came the altars. Small ones at first. One for Jesus, one for Saint Michael, one for our ancestors. Mom hated how the house started smelling like incense at 6 in the morning, but Dad didn't care. He cleaned those altars like they were the only things keeping the house standing. For years, things were peaceful. Then, something shifted. Dad didn't go back to drinking. No, this was worse. He grew distant, sleepless, obsessive, and slowly, he stopped tending every altar in the house, except one, a new one. It appeared one day on a high shelf in his room, higher than all the others, covered with a black cloth, with a glass of whiskey set in front of it. Dad never drank whiskey, but someone did. Sometimes I'd pass his room late at night and hear whispering, soft, low, like two people speaking behind a wall. But Dad would be asleep. And one night, I swear this on my life, I saw cigarette smoke curling up from that altar. Thin, slow, deliberate. There was no wind, no open window, no one else awake. That was the first night I understood something terrifying. My father had brought something into our home, something that wasn't human, and it was awake. I didn't say anything that first night. I should have, but fear has a way of convincing you to stay quiet, to pretend nothing happened, even when everything inside you is screaming. Over the next few weeks, Dad changed even more. He stopped eating dinner with us, stopped talking, stopped sleeping in his own bed. Most nights, I'd wake up around 2 or 3 a.m. and see the light leaking from under his door, a cold, yellow glow, flickering like candlelight. And every single time, I'd hear it, whispering. Not Dad's voice, not anything human, really. It was too soft, too layered, like several voices speaking at once underwater. I tried to ignore it, until the night the whispering said my name. It was around 3:14 a.m. I remember the exact time because the digital clock on my nightstand flickered when it happened, like the power dipped for half a second. I sat up in bed, rubbed my eyes, thinking maybe I was dreaming. Then I heard it again. "Ethan, come closer." Soft, slow, drawn out, like something tasting the sound of my name. I froze. For a moment, I didn't breathe. I didn't move. My skin felt like ice, like someone had opened a freezer door inside my chest. The whisper came again. "Ethan, open the door." Dad's door, not mine. His room was down the hall, maybe 15 steps away, but at that moment it felt like miles. I don't know where I found the courage or stupidity, but I stood up. My feet hit the floor, cold as stone. I stepped out into the hallway, and the house felt different, heavier. The air was thick, humid, like I'd walked into a greenhouse at night. Dad's door was cracked open just slightly. A thin line of dim yellow light spilled into the darkness. I took one step, then another. Halfway down the hall, something moved. A shadow, tall, thin, standing behind the door. I froze again, but this time it wasn't fear holding me still. It was the shadow. It leaned, slowly, deliberately, like it was bending its head to look at me through the crack. And then, it whispered, "You shouldn't be here." The voice didn't come from behind the door. It came from right next to me, like someone was standing inches from my ear. I stumbled back so fast I nearly slipped. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I turned to run back to my room, and that's when I saw Dad. He was standing at the end of the hallway, in the dark, facing the wall, not moving, not blinking, just standing there like he'd been there the whole time. "Dad," I whispered. He didn't answer, but the shadow behind the door, the one that wasn't supposed to be there, it shifted, slowly, like it was stepping closer. That was the night I realized something else. Whatever was in that room, whatever Dad had invited into our home, it wasn't just watching me anymore. It wanted me. I barely slept after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the shape behind Dad's door, tall, thin, bending in ways no person should. And worse, I kept hearing the whisper, sometimes faint, sometimes right behind me, always saying my name. I didn't tell Mom, didn't tell my sister, didn't even try to talk to Dad, because deep down, I knew whatever was happening had something to do with that altar in his room, the one covered with the black cloth, the one he treated like a king. Days went by, then a week, then 2, and the feeling followed me everywhere, like something walking just a step behind me, breathing lightly on the back of my neck. I felt it in the bathroom, in the yard, even at school. One afternoon, something happened that I never told anyone. I was sitting alone in the cafeteria, finishing lunch. The room was loud, kids talking, trays clattering, teachers shouting. Just normal chaos. Then, everything went silent. Not less noisy, not muffled. Silent, like someone turned off the world. I looked up. Everyone was frozen, not moving, not blinking, not breathing. My fork slipped from my hand and clattered onto the table, but even that didn't make a sound. It was like I'd stepped outside of reality for a moment. And then, behind me, I heard it. Ethan. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The voice came again, right against my ear. You can't ignore me. The hairs on my arms stood straight up. My eyes burned with tears I didn't even feel coming. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I wanted to run, but my legs were glued to the chair. Then, cold fingers wrapped around my shoulder. Not a full hand, not a warm grip, just long, narrow, ice-cold fingers. I jerked forward so hard the chair almost tipped. And just like that, sound returned. Kids were laughing again. Teachers scolding again. Trays clattering again. Everyone moving like nothing happened. I stumbled out of the cafeteria, shaking so badly I could barely push the door open. I ran to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. And then I saw it. A handprint. A long, bony, blackened handprint on my right shoulder, like coal smeared into the shape of fingers. The skin around it was cold, colder than anything I'd ever felt. That night, I finally told Mom something was wrong. But when I showed her my shoulder, the handprint was gone. Completely. Not even a mark. She looked at me like I was imagining things, like I was having nightmares from too many scary stories. But I knew the truth. Something had touched me. Something that wasn't supposed to exist. Something that Dad had brought home. And it wasn't letting go. After what happened at school, I stopped pretending things would get better. Whatever followed me, touched me, whispered to me, it wasn't a hallucination. And I wasn't the only one affected. The next person was my sister. Her name's Emily. She was older than me by 2 years, stronger, braver, the kind of person who didn't scare easily. But even she couldn't pretend nothing was wrong in that house. It happened one evening, close to sunset. Mom asked her to shower before dinner, and she went like normal. I was in my room, trying to distract myself, when I heard something. A scream. Not loud. Not panicked. More like someone gasping after being startled so badly their voice split. I ran down the hall and banged on the bathroom door. Emily, you okay? No answer. Just the sound of the shower running. Too loud, like the water pressure suddenly doubled. I knocked harder. Answer me. Then the water turned off. Silence. A long, heavy, unnatural silence. Finally the door opened, just a crack. Emily stood there wrapped in a towel, shaking. Don't tell Mom, she whispered. Her eyes were wide, red, like she'd been holding back tears. She grabbed my wrist and pulled me into her room before I could say anything. I saw something, she said. In the hallway. My throat tightened. What did you see? She looked at the wall behind me, not at me, like she was afraid saying it out loud would make it come back. "I heard you calling me," she said quietly. "Your voice, clear as day. You said, 'Em, come out for a second.'" My stomach dropped. I wasn't even near the hallway. "I know," she whispered, "but I opened the bathroom door anyway. And when I stepped out," she swallowed hard. "There was something standing at the end of the hall, tall, thin. Its skin was pale, like gray-white. Its face was wrong, Ethan. Its mouth looked like someone had cut it too wide and stretched it upward." I stopped breathing. "It didn't move," she continued, "just stood there, watching me." She squeezed her towel tighter around herself. "And then, it glided. Not walked. It slid across the floor, like its feet weren't touching the ground." I felt my heart pounding against my ribs. "When it passed the bathroom door, I felt it," she whispered. "The air got cold. My chest felt like something pressed on it. That's when I screamed. My hands went numb." "It looked at me, Ethan," she said. "It didn't have eyes, but it looked at me." I finally found my voice. "What did Dad do? Did he hear you?" Her face darkened. "He came out of his room, but he didn't even look at me. He just stared down the hall, then closed the door again." Her voice cracked. "He knew. He knew it was there." Emily grabbed my hand. "This isn't just you anymore," she whispered. "It's in this house, and it's getting stronger." That was the first night we both understood. This thing wasn't here by accident. It wasn't wandering. It wasn't lost. It had been invited. After Emily saw the thing in the hallway, neither of us slept. Not really. We tried to stay in the same room at night, keep the lights on, play music, anything that made the house feel less alive. But the house didn't care. The darkness didn't care. And whatever Dad had brought home seemed almost amused by our attempts. The worst part was Dad himself. He wasn't talking to us anymore. Not even a good morning, not a sleep well. He moved through the house like he was underwater, slow, heavy, as if listening to something we couldn't hear. Except, maybe we could. Sometimes at night, I'd hear footsteps in his room. Not soft human footsteps, but long dragging ones, like something tall was pacing back and forth. And every time the steps paused, a low whisper filled the silence. Not English, not any language I knew, just a deep, rumbling sound, like a voice speaking out of the earth. Then came the night the altar opened. It was close to midnight. The house was quiet. I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about what Emily told me. But then, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. I felt the air change, like the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. Even the crickets outside went silent. The whole world held its breath. A door creaked open down the hall. Not mine. Not Emily's. Dad's. I sat up slowly, the darkness pressing against my skin like cold hands. And then I heard it. A soft tear, like fabric being pulled apart. Emily whispered from her bed on the floor, "Ethan, do you hear that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't, because I knew what the sound was. It was the black cloth on Dad's altar being lifted. Something was uncovering it. The hallway was pitch black, but I could still see movement, shadows shifting, stretching, spilling out from Dad's room like smoke. And with them came a smell, something sharp, acidic, like burnt metal. Then Dad's voice echoed faintly. "I'm ready." Not strong, not steady, broken, like something was forcing the words through him. Emily grabbed my arm so hard her nails dug into my skin. "Ethan, don't move." From down the hall, something stepped out. Tall, long, too thin to be human. Its body seemed to twitch with every step, like it was learning how to move inside a shape it didn't belong in. And then, it spoke. Not out loud, not with a mouth. Its voice slid into our heads like cold water. "Child, come see." Emily gasped. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. The voice wasn't calling her. It was calling me. The thing took another step, the floorboards groaning under its weight even though it looked weightless. Its shape flickered, bending, stretching, like a shadow caught in a flame. Then Dad appeared behind it. His eyes were open, but empty, like he wasn't seeing the thing in front of him, like he wasn't seeing us. He whispered, "It chose you." My blood turned to ice. "What chose me?" I whispered. Dad smiled. A slow, crooked, unnatural smile. The one I brought home. At that exact moment, the altar behind him glowed faintly, an ugly, pulsing red light. And the thing in the hallway whispered again, "Come closer." That was the first night I understood something horrifying. This thing wasn't haunting the house. It wasn't haunting Dad. It was claiming me. I didn't walk toward it. I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. For a moment, everything inside me froze. My thoughts, my heartbeat, even the air in my lungs felt trapped, like the thing's voice had wrapped itself around them. "Come closer," it whispered again. Not aloud. Inside me, inside my bones. Emily pulled at my arm, shaking her head violently, tears streaming down her face. But my legs felt like they weren't mine anymore, like something was gently tugging them forward. I dug my nails into the wall, anything to stop myself from moving. Dad stepped aside, like he was making room for whatever stood behind him. His eyes, still empty. His body, swaying slightly, like a puppet waiting for its strings. "Don't fight it," he said softly. "It already marked you." My stomach dropped. I didn't know what he meant. Not then. The thing took another step, and I swear the hallway stretched. Just a little, like space itself was bending to give it room. The shadows pooled around its feet, thick and alive, crawling up the walls like ink. Then, everything went black. No sound, no movement, no house, nothing. Just darkness. And in that darkness, something touched me. Not like the cold fingers before. This was worse. This was inside my skin. A burning sensation spread across my shoulder, hot, sharp, like someone carving into me with a brand. I tried to scream, but the darkness shoved the sound down my throat. Then I heard my father's voice, but it wasn't coming from him anymore. It was coming from inside the burning. "You belong to it now." Light snapped back all at once, and I was lying on the floor of my room. Emily was shaking me violently, sobbing, wake up, Ethan, please." The house was normal again. No shadows. No creature in the hallway. Dad's door shut tight. For a second, I thought maybe I'd passed out. Maybe it was a nightmare. Then Emily stared at my shoulder. "Ethan, what is that?" I pulled my shirt down enough to see it in the mirror. A symbol, carved into my skin. Deep, dark, like something burned it into me from the inside. The edges pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. It wasn't a shape I recognized. Not a letter. Not a number. More like an eye, crossed with a crooked line, and something curling around it like thorned vines. My stomach twisted. "It did something to me," I whispered. Emily covered her mouth, trying not to scream. "Ethan, Dad has the same mark." I froze. "What?" She nodded slowly, shaking, terrified. "I saw it weeks ago, right after he built that altar. It was on his back. I thought it was a bruise, but it looked just like yours." My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Dad hadn't quit drinking by choice. He hadn't become calmer out of nowhere. He hadn't changed because of some miracle. He'd been marked, just like me, and whatever had claimed him was coming back for me. I couldn't sleep that night. Not after the mark. Not after seeing it on my father. Emily tried, but even she didn't speak much. We both sat in my room, the only sound the tick of the old clock and our own breathing, loud, too loud, in the dark. I kept staring at the symbol on my shoulder, faintly glowing in the dim light, like it had a life of its own. Every so often, it pulsed, almost like a heartbeat, and every pulse made the hairs on my neck stand up. I should have called Dad. I wanted to, but I knew whatever had touched him, whatever had left the mark, was waiting for me to talk. Then I heard it, soft, almost hidden beneath the hum of the heater, a whisper, carried through the walls. "Ethan." Not Emily. Not Dad. Not me. It was something else. Older, hungrier, watching. I froze. Emily grabbed my arm, shaking me. "I heard it too," she whispered, her eyes wide, unblinking. I could see it, the same fear mirrored in her. We didn't speak after that. We just sat, listening, and waiting for the sound to come back. By morning, everything seemed normal. Sunlight streamed through the curtains. Birds chirped outside. The world, like it hadn't tried to pull me into darkness the night before. But the mark, it pulsed faintly, reminding me it was still there, still alive. Dad didn't mention anything at breakfast. He was quiet, distant, like a man haunted by shadows no one else could see. And I realized he always looked that way before, long before I noticed. After school, I tried to push it out of my mind, pretended I was normal. But Emily, she noticed the way I flinched at every shadow, every whisper, every breeze through the trees. That evening, we decided to go to the woods behind the house. I didn't want to, but something, a pull, stronger than fear, drove me there. The trees were dark, even though the sun hadn't fully set. Shadows pooled, thick, alive, crawling along the trunks. I felt it, again, the same pressure, like invisible fingers brushing along my skin, toward the mark. Then, movement. A figure, just beyond the tree lean. It wasn't fully human, not fully shadow. but it watched me. Its shape, flickered, broken, impossible. I tried to run, but Emily grabbed my hand. "No," she whispered. "Don't let it take you." I stopped. The figure shifted closer, and I realized it wasn't coming for me yet. It was waiting, patiently, knowing I would make the mistake. The mark burned, hot, sharp, like it wanted me to see, to feel, to understand what was coming. And then it whispered, "You belong to it." We froze. The woods fell silent, except for the sound of our own terror. And I knew this was only the beginning. The night after the mark burned hotter than ever. I couldn't stay in the house. I couldn't breathe inside those walls. So Emily and I went back to the woods. We carried flashlights, though I knew their beams did nothing against the darkness that waited. The air smelled of damp earth, of rot, and something older, like the forest itself, was breathing. I kept glancing at my shoulder. The symbol pulsed faintly, like it knew the path ahead, like it wanted me to follow. Emily whispered, "Ethan, do you think it knows we're here?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to, because I already knew the answer. The trees, the shadows between them, they moved differently now. Not with the wind, not with the animals, but with intention. A branch snapped behind us. We froze. Nothing there, but the air thickened, and I could feel it crawling across my skin. The same presence from the hallway, the same whisper curling inside my mind. "Come closer." I gritted my teeth, tried to pull Emily back, but she shook her head. "We have to see it," she said. "We have to know what it wants." We followed the pulsing symbol, through the underbrush, until the forest opened into a small clearing. There, in the center, was the altar. It wasn't Dad's this time. No candles, no wooden carvings, just shadows, pooling, writhing, and a figure, taller than any man, limbs bending wrong, its head tilted at impossible angles. It stared at us, and I felt my stomach drop, because I knew it saw the mark, and it wasn't pleased. "You have it." The voice slithered through the air, through the trees, inside my own head. I did not take him. Not yet. Emily gasped, but I could barely hear her, because all I could feel was heat, burning, from the symbol, and from inside me. "But now, you are mine." I stumbled back. Emily grabbed my arm, but the shadows stretched between us, thick, suffocating, pulling at my legs, at my skin, at my mind. I wanted to scream, but the darkness swallowed my voice. I wanted to run, but my feet, they didn't obey. It stepped closer, and for the first time, I saw its eyes, or what I assumed were eyes. They were black holes, swirling, endless, filled with something hungry. And then, the whisper came again. "The Father marked you. The child will follow." Emily shook me violently. "Ethan, fight it." But I could feel it, inside me, tugging, twisting, pulling my thoughts toward it. I knew one thing. If I didn't fight now, I would be lost, just like Dad. I clenched my fists and screamed, but it was too late. The shadows surged forward, and the clearing was no longer just trees, but a living nightmare wrapping around us, hungry, patient, and eternal. I woke up the next morning, not in my bed, not on the floor of my room, but in the attic. The sunlight filtered through the small, dusty windows, and for a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, everything had been a nightmare. Emily wasn't there. The symbol on my shoulder pulsed faintly, reminding me this was no dream. I scrambled to my feet, and that's when I saw it. An old chest, hidden under a moth-eaten tarp, covered in strange symbols carved into the wood. It wasn't locked, but a chill ran down my spine as I opened it. Inside were pages, old, yellowed, brittle, filled with handwriting. My father's handwriting, but the words, they weren't his. The mark chooses its vessel. The child inherits the father's debt. The altar demands blood. My hands trembled. I flipped through more pages, drawings, diagrams, symbols twisted like the one burned into my skin, and then a photograph. My father, standing in front of the altar, smiling, the mark visible on his back, and behind him, the shadows, just like the ones I'd seen in the clearing. I felt bile rise in my throat. Dad hadn't been a victim. He had been a participant. A whisper slithered through the attic. "Now it's your turn." I spun around, but no one was there. Just the chest, the pages, the fading sunlight. Emily's voice called from below. "Ethan, Ethan, hurry." She sounded frantic, terrified, but determined. I followed her down the narrow stairs and into the kitchen. She held a small, leather-bound book. "This is it," she said, her voice shaking. "The only thing that can stop it." I glanced at the symbol on my shoulder. It pulsed faster, like it was alive, like it could feel our movements, could feel our thoughts, and it hated us for trying to escape. Emily opened the book, and inside, instructions, rituals, wards, prayers, all designed to sever the mark's connection, but at a cost. "It wants a vessel," she whispered. "If we fail, it takes him, or me, or you." I swallowed hard. The weight of the truth pressed down on me, heavier than the mark, heavier than fear. We had a choice, fight or surrender, and I knew. The shadows were already watching. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, the same rhythm as before. The forest alive with its hunger, and we had less than a night to prepare, because when darkness falls, it doesn't ask, it takes. The night came like a predator, slow, deliberate, its breath in the wind, its claws in the shadows. Emily and I prepared the ritual in the clearing behind the house. The altar stood like a monument to madness, our father's legacy, and the thing that had marked us. I traced the symbol on my shoulder, fingertips trembling, and for a moment, I could feel it. A pulse, cold, angry, alive, watching, waiting, judging. Emily chanted from the book, words older than the house, older than my family, and the wind seemed to answer her. The shadows began to stir. At first, small shapes crawling along the trees, then darker, taller, closer, like the night itself had grown legs. I felt my father's presence before I saw him. Not alive, but not entirely gone. A husk of the man he had been, and his eyes, those empty, hollow eyes, locked onto mine. Ethan, his voice cracked. Don't fight it. I wanted to scream, but Emily's hand on mine, steady, grounded me. The symbols from the chest, the attic, the book, all came together. Lines of power, barriers, a path. But the thing, it wasn't patient. It lunged from the trees, shadows forming into limbs, teeth, claws, a shape that shouldn't exist. Its whisper filled my head. You belong to me. I raised my hand, tracing the symbol in the dirt, and I could feel the mark burning, reacting, fighting against the ritual. Emily's voice grew louder, insistent. It will try to take you. Don't let it. I felt it, inside me. The thing's hunger, its memory, the weight of generations. And I realized, it wasn't just after me. It was after everything I could become. The ritual reached its peak. The ground glowed faintly, and the shadows screamed, an impossible sound, like the forest itself crying. I grabbed Emily's hand and whispered, we end this together. A blinding light shot from the altar, and the thing writhed, screaming, and my father's hollow voice, Ethan, forgive me. Then, silence. The mark burned away. The shadows scattered. The night, still. Emily and I collapsed, gasping, exhausted, but alive. Behind us, the altar cracked, splintered, and the forest returned to normal, or as normal as it could be. After what had happened, I touched my shoulder. Nothing. No pulse. No pain. But I know, in the quiet, in the stillness, the thing hasn't forgotten. It waits. Always waits. And sometimes, when the wind whistles through the trees, I swear I hear a whisper, you belong to me. And I shiver, because I know it will return.